This is Kyle Madson with your top stories on Sports 1140. Week 10 of the NFL got underway with the Steelers beating the Panthers 52-21 at Heinz Field. Ben Roethlisberger was perfect in the passer rating column. He completed 22 of 25 throws for 328 yards and 5 touchdowns. And, of course, that 158.3 passer rating. The Raiders' Week 10 matchup will be at home against the Los Angeles Chargers, and you can listen to that game right here on Sports 1140. Also on Sports 1140, we have tonight's Kings game as the Minnesota Timberwolves come into the Golden One Center. The Timberwolves are winless on the road. The Kings looking to snap a 2-game losing skid. Wow. Our coverage of that one begins with game night at 5:30. Kings live at 6:30, and tip-off is set for 7 o'clock. Those are your top stories. Now back to the drive on Sports 1140 KHTK.
Rise and shine, sleepyhead.
I'm not letting you go to work today.
Wait, what?
Everybody, listen up.
Welcome to The Drive.
Morning, morning, morning.
You're going to talk.
Get on the phone at 339-1140.
Pretty awesome, huh?
Jump in on our text line at 441140.
Everyone is talking about it. You must know that.
The Drive starts now.
All right, Kyle's getting Jay Bilas on the phone from ESPN. We will talk to him about that Duke basketball team. Woof. And then we'll ask him some Kings questions, I'm sure. Also want to ask about Houston. Golden State last night. Jay can cover both college and the NFL. From the text line, Dave and Kyle heading to the game tonight, part of Maryhill Midtown Back to School Night. And they get to shoot a free throw after the game, a single shot. I need a pre-free throw process. He makes an anger management Goose Frobber reference. Type routine, what would you do? Man, I would say, and I'm sure you've already done it, I would say shoot some free throws at the school today. Get in that habit. And don't worry about it. Just go out there and, I'd give you the whole imagine everyone in their underwear thing, but there's going to be 18,000 people there tonight. That's a lot of underwear. But, just it's a free throw. And let me put it this way. No one's gonna love you more or hate you more if you miss it. ESPN basketball analyst, former basketball player at Duke. You see him on television all the time, and I would imagine he's flying high after that game, such as it was a few days ago versus Kentucky. The one, the only Jay Bilas. Jay, it's Dave and Kyle. Thanks for joining us. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Man, I am. Well, first off, I'm going to bring you into the conversation we just had. We have I think it's a teacher from a local school. It's a back to school night out at Golden One Center tonight, and during the game, as part of one of those deals they do, he gets to shoot a free throw, and he's very nervous, and he's wanting to know what sort of mental routine we would suggest so that he can calm down as he's shooting this free throw. Well, we have never played basketball at your level, Jay, so do you have any advice for this guy?
Has he already shot it, or he's going to shoot it?
He's going to shoot it tonight at the Kings-Timberwolves game.
Yeah, I think hopefully practice a little bit, but right. I think with any free throw shooter or anybody who plays golf or anything, you kind of rely on a routine. But if you don't shoot very much, a routine doesn't really matter. I would just try to stay loose, and you've done it before, and it's no different than shooting it. The conditions are always the same, so you don't have to worry about wind or anything. It's not that big of a deal. Just go ahead and shoot it.
This is deep breaths and muscle memory, basically, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, actually, you try to liken it to golf and golf to free throws, even though, as I just mentioned, the conditions never change in basketball. But it's the only time on a basketball floor that you have to think. Everything else is instinctive, and you're reacting, and that's why a lot of times pressure and tension can creep in, and that's what you're trying to avoid is letting tension creep in.
That reminds me of another question. You'd be the perfect guy to ask. I used to have an argument with an old host friend of mine. He said that clutch and pressure don't exist in sports. Getting it out in the ninth inning is the same as getting it out in the first. If you're a pitcher, hitting a free throw in the fourth quarter is the same as hitting a free throw in the first quarter. Now, again, I've never played professional sports or Division I sports, but I thought that was garbage. You just kind of alluded to it, Jay. Free throws, as much mental as it is physical?
Well, I don't. The mental part comes into it more often. Like I said before, it's the only time you have to think, and you're not usually stopping to think. And nobody talks about their routine when they're taking a shot in a game, because you've got somebody guarding you, and it's fast paced, and you're mostly reacting rather than thinking. But you're stopped at a free throw, and I don't know. People process things differently, so some people feel pressure in a different way than others. So I'm not willing to discount what your friend had said. That may work for him or people that he knows, but pressure tends to affect people in a negative way by making them more tense. And in anything, whether anybody that plays golf knows that if you have tension in your swing, and you are not going to hit the ball well or as well. And when you're tension free, that's why a lot of golfers say, hey, if you want to hit the ball a long way, take a really light grip. And you try to eliminate tension from your body, and pressure usually brings tension. And tension is the enemy of performance, usually in a sport like basketball or golf, something like that.
ESPN's Jay Bilas joining us. Jay, I don't want to go too crazy on Duke. I think a lot of people are putting them in pen as their national champion already, but my goodness, worst loss Coach Cal has experienced at college or the pro level. Should people freak out about Duke? Because they looked about as amazing as you possibly could.
Well, people can do whatever they want. They can freak out. They can be upset. They can do whatever they want. It doesn't affect the outcome. Only the players and the coaches affect the outcome. So I used to get that question all the time. Like, right before a game, I'd see a fan. They go, should I be nervous? And I go, be nervous if you want to. It doesn't affect the players. you can feel however you want. You can be drunk if you want. It's not going to affect the game. But I think there were a lot of people picking Duke to win the national championship before that game.
Yep.
So it's not like somehow they were loyal to Chicago and just came out of nowhere in the ball game on Tuesday night. They were the number one recruiting class for a reason, and number one classes are different all the time. Just because the number one class last year, the number one class this year is better. These guys are legit, and they've got three of the top three rated players in last year's class, and three guys that are projected to go in the top 5 in this year's draft. So they're very, very good, and I did not expect them to beat Kentucky like that. I actually thought Kentucky had a good chance to win, but they were overmatched at a lot of positions, and the perimeter strength of Duke just crushed them. And then but part of that was the when the ball started rolling downhill on them, the snowball, it just got bigger and bigger, and they got mired in it. I don't think that Duke is 34 points better than Kentucky. They certainly looked it, but I think it was the 2014-15 season. Kentucky came into that Champions Classic, and they beat the snot out of Kansas. Kansas couldn't get a shot up, and Kentucky was blocking everything. And they went 38-0 and wound up losing in the national semifinal to Duke. And nobody talks about them as being a great team. They were a great team. So, I don't think Duke's going to go undefeated. I think somebody will beat them. It's just a question of when it happens. And if it happens in the tournament, then people are going to bag on them. If it doesn't happen in the tournament, people are going to remember them as being a great team.
You mentioned this incredible recruiting class they had and possibly having 3 of the top 5 picks in the NBA draft. Is there a clear-cut top player on Duke between R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson on the rest of that class, or is it still yet to be determined which player is the best one there?
I don't know if it's clear-cut. I think R.J. Barrett's a better player because he can do more things. He's more of the prototype NBA guard right now. He's 6'6", and he's really like James Harden, really, in his ability to get to the basket. And at least that's the comparison I've used in watching him play. He's not a great shooter yet, but I think he's going to improve as a shooter because he's got a good stroke. He doesn't shoot free throws that well. He's in the 60s, mid-60s as a free throw shooter. But he's a better shooter, I think, than Zion Williamson. Zion Williamson's just this freakish being. I mean, I've never seen a player like him. There's never been a player like him to play basketball, not just college basketball, not just high school basketball, any level. There's never been a player like him. And that doesn't mean he's the best player I've ever seen. He's not. But I've never seen another player like him. with his size, his explosiveness, his skill level, his passing ability. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's hard to wrap your head around all the things that he can do at his size.
You know the Duke program very well, Jay, and we've heard here, for example, in Sacramento, because of Marvin Bagley, the idea that, oh my gosh, can you imagine if they had Reddish and the two, and Zion and that whole group? What if Bagley had actually, who was originally we thought supposed to have his freshman year this year at Duke? But is there a likely scenario where you could have had all four of those guys, or do you think had Bagley started this year, the recruiting class would have shaken out differently?
I don't know. You might have had. That's possible, but there are a whole bunch of schools that say that. There are teams that say that. They talk about, boy, if this guy had stayed or if this had happened, it could have affected players' decisions as to whether they were going to go there. Maybe they'd go there anyway.
Sure.
You never know, but this is kind of the way it is now. I don't think you're going to see a lot of stockpiling of players. That's probably not going to happen, but getting guys that are willing to go play together for a year, you certainly have been seeing that as a trend, and most of them have ganged up to go to places like Duke and Kentucky. You haven't seen a lot of other places taking multiple or getting multiple. They're recruiting them; they're just not getting them. And this group seems the one at Duke seems special. Not only just their talent level, but the way they fit together. And I know he hasn't gotten a lot of publicity, but that kid Trey Jones is really good. And he was a top 10 recruit, so they got 1, 2, 3, and 10. That's pretty good. And but he's got a genetic ability to lead. He's Tyus Jones's younger brother. And I thought he was, quietly outstanding in that game against Kentucky. I think he had, if I remember right, he had 9 points, 7 assists, not one turnover. And Duke only had 4 turnovers, which is not going to be the norm going forward. I can't imagine that it would be. But they had an unbelievable game, and it showed what they're capable of. The question is, are they consistently capable of getting and staying at or near that level?
Jay Bilas, ESPN, joining us, and that's a great transition to Marvin Bagley. Are you seeing what you expected out of Bagley? A little better, a little worse? I know there were some questions once he and Wendell Carter got separated, and the way Coach K plays, how he would be in the NBA. What are your assessments on the kid so far this year?
He's had really good moments. I don't make, not
Sure.
that I've got all this crystal ball. It's hard to make assessments after 12 or 13 games.
Sure.
I mean, that's such a short period of time. It's a too short a period of time to make an assessment on a team. Just like I don't think the Houston Rockets are out of it or the Lakers are out of it.
Yeah.
But especially with rookies, you've had guys that have come into the league and get in situations where maybe the team isn't very good or the team's mid-level or something, or they got a lot of young players and they don't play particularly well their first year, or they play really well their first year, and then that's not what you see after that. It's a long slog in that league, but he's talented and he's got the ability to be a really, really good player. And I know Sacramento's gotten off to a really good start. They have some good pieces, and most of the pieces are young, but they're in a tough division, and as they keep going forward in a tough conference, keep going forward, things are going to change. I mean, maybe they get better, maybe they don't, but things are going to change in that sort of in the West. The West is it's really hard, and the East has gotten better, but the West is still clearly the better conference of the two.
Well, and we're in Sacramento, obviously, and on the heels of what you just said, it's way too early to make a prediction.
It's not too early to be happy. I mean, after
right.
you've suffered like Sacramento suffered, be happy. It's been a long time since Sacramento could say, "Hey, we have a winning record."
Jay, I
thought
still
winning, right? Aren't they?
Yeah,
it's 6-5 or something.
They're 6-5. They play the Wolves tonight, who are 0-7 on the road. So either they're due or the Kings get another win. I honestly thought they'd be between 3-17 and 6-14 to start out their first 20 games. I looked at every game. That was my assessment, and I think I wasn't that far off from a lot of people. It is a small sample size, and I totally understand that. But you just kind of pointed to it. Is it just really kind of a matter of, I don't know, cross between Jaeger's coaching, Fox improving? Is there I know you got to pay attention to 300 teams, Jay, but is there one thing that stood out to you so far this year about the Kings that either surprised you or you can point to as to why they had a better start than a lot of us thought?
Not really. I mean, they've got some good players and guys that are younger and growing, and De'Aaron Fox is going to continue to get better. I mean, he's going to be a really good player. It's just a question of how a young team processes things differently. So things are going well. Who knows what's going to happen going forward? I mean, it's not going to stay the same. I know that, and things are going to get a lot harder. They've had. I think there were a couple games where I know they played Houston early on. Houston's been beat up and doesn't have all their players and all that stuff. So you can draw some conclusions both ways on it. But I think it's a great thing to get off to a good start for any team. Because when there's positive momentum, people feel better about things, and players don't tend to go their own way. So I think it's a great thing to have them start off so well.
Last thing, and I'm going to be selfish here, Jay, because only I care about this, but I know you'll have an answer. My Florida State Seminoles crushed Florida to start the year. I'm not asking if they're going to win a national championship, but do you think Leonard Hamilton has them back in the mode where they can surprise some people in March? How do you assess their team this year?
They've been good for a long time, so it's not surprising. And heck, it's been like 7 in a row that they've beaten Florida.
Yep.
That was a drubbing, though. I was a little surprised that they took them out like that. But that was at Florida State. But I mean, they've won so many of those in a row. But they're very athletic, and I think PJ Savoy hit like 5 or 6 threes in that game, and they're without Phil Kofer. So when he comes back, they're going to be even better. It just kind of depends on how consistent their offense is. I think the problem for Florida State the last few years is they haven't been, last couple maybe I shouldn't say few, they haven't been as good defensively as they were before. That's always kind of been the staple of them. And so if they, we used to, the complaint about Florida State was they can guard people, but they don't score easily. And the last few years they scored really easy and didn't guard anybody relatively. So if they defend, they can be very, very good.
You can watch Jay Bilas on ESPN all over the place. In March is where I think he shines the most. That coverage throughout the year, though, is phenomenal. We appreciate it, and I appreciate Throwback Friday. I appreciate the quotes each and every morning to start out your tweets, and I appreciate you coming on today, Jay. Thank you.
Real recognize real. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. That's Jay Bilas at ESPN joining us on the drive. 339-1140. 1-800-920-1140. Our thanks to Jay for joining us today.
I wonder if he was listening and his, feel how you want to feel was part of a bit. Because we were just talking about that.
Right. Jay.
Should I be nervous? No, you can feel how you want.
Hey, for reals. You guys on the text line are being brutal. You're being brutal, and I expected it. From the 209, Bilas hates talking to you, Dave. Can hear it in his voice. Most negative guest you've had on the show. Let me
What?
let me just stand in front of Jay here.
It was just his voice.
What Jay got paid nothing to make that appearance. We are not a partner with ESPN. That was Kyle, you were my witness. I texted him last night or yesterday afternoon around 5 o'clock. Yeah, because you hung out
and you showed me the text.
I think I texted him around 5 o'clock. Within 2 minutes, he had an answer that he'd come on. It's the first time I've asked him to come on since our last interview, and he said yes within 2 minutes. And I'm pretty sure Jay Bilas has other things going on in his life.
Yeah.
So, for real, it's appreciated. Jay is a huge voice nationally.
Truth be told,
yeah,
I bet he doesn't put 2 and 2 together that his interview over the word dysfunctional was this show.
Oh, I disagree with that. Oh,
really?
Oh, I absolutely disagree with that. Oh, he knows.
Okay.
He knows.
Okay.
He knows.
Okay.
Because we had a couple texts after that interview, and so when I texted him yesterday, those
okay, sure.
Listen, I'm not trying to get too big. Like that was the most crazy interview he's ever done. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
I feel like those stick out though enough.
It was just weird enough.
But Jay just has a way that you can take one of two ways. It's to the point. It's the analysis you ask for, and he is very
literal.
Like how we started, how you mentioned, like, should we be nervous? Well, you can be whatever you want. Well,
yeah, obviously.
I know that I can. Is that snark? I don't think so.
Ask a direct question.
You'll get a direct answer.
Right, but if you try and couch your, like, hey, how do you feel about this team with, should X team be nervous?
Right.
He's going to hit you with, they're going to feel how you want. And he's a smart dude. He went to Duke. He's a lawyer.
Yes. He does amazing stuff with the military. And, yes, there was a point during the interview, and we'll take a break here. There was a point during the interview where he mentioned how Houston was shorthanded when the Kings played him. No, we didn't miss that. No, we didn't. Listen, what am I going to do there? We've got 2 minutes left. What do you want? Jay, actually, they haven't played Houston. Put yourself in my position. You all know the Kings haven't played Houston. What am I getting in this interview out of correcting him on that? Nothing. We know he probably meant Oklahoma City is what I'm thinking he meant when he said the Kings had played a shorthanded Houston.
Thinking of last year.
Sure. So for all of you, I told you I wasn't bringing up the dysfunctional thing. Although it did, I will be honest, Kyle. You remember we've established you saw A Few Good Men, or you didn't?
A long time ago.
Okay. And they were worried about Tom Cruise asking Jack Nicholson if he ordered the code red.
Yes.
I did have in my chamber. Do you think part of the reason the Lakers are struggling this year is because their locker room is dysfunctional?
I'm glad you didn't.
And I didn't pull the trigger. But I really wanted to see if I could pull the trigger. That's the only reason I want to do it. It's a competitive part of me. If I could pull the trigger and ask him the question, do you think he would have just given me a straight answer, or do you think he would have picked up on it?
He would have picked up on it.
Do you think he would have let on that he picked up on it?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he absolutely would have said a mean thing, but in more words.
From the 707, what are we getting Kings players on? Why are we wasting time on Jay Bilas?
Hey, you ask a professional basketball player to wake up at 7:30 in the morning.
You ever heard a Kings player on the show before in the morning? Sometimes it works. Usually it doesn't. There's a reason for it.
They roll out of bed.
If they're not awake.
All us.
That's why we get Kings players on. Generally, when we'll get a Kings player on, it's going to be when they're on an East Coast road trip.
Same thing with A's players.
Right. Because, otherwise.
Either a 12:30 first pitch or East Coast.
Right. I'm not going to pick on any specific player, but, hey, player for the Kings, your thoughts on last night's game, and do you think you can continue that tonight?
Well, yeah, it was amazing, and, honestly, I think if we do our homework, I think we can go out there and
win the ball game. So that's pretty much 90% of every Kings player interview we've had on this show when they're local.
These guys work hard. They need sleep.
Yes, they do.
All right, I'll take a break.
When we come back, what are we talking about when we come back? Bill James said some things about players yesterday, and Kyle and I are going to talk about it. Bill James, the author of the Baseball Prospecti.
Bill James, a science guy.
Yes, that guy. We also have Nostradamus for you as well. It's The Drive, Sports 1140 KHTK. Thanks to Jay Bilas and Sean Salisbury for joining us. All guests brought to you by the Firewings Hotline. 21 different flavors to choose from. Firewings.com. Just wing it. Nostradamus in about 15 minutes. I want to talk about Bill James. Bill James! But also The Ringer has a new article out, which the Sacramento Kings are featured prominently by Danny Chow, talking about the biggest beneficiaries of the Pace era. Well, here's a little excerpt. The Lords of Sacktown haven't been this fun in 20 years. When a rookie named Jason Williams unknowingly sparked a countercultural movement in the NBA. The 98-99 Kings were ahead of their time, pushing back against the leaden ways of the league. They outpaced the second fastest team in the league then by nearly 4 possessions per 48 minutes. And at 14 seconds used per possession, operated at the same speed as the average team in 2018, 2019. How about this? Jason Williams averaged 6.5 3-point attempts per game his first year, which trails only Donovan Mitchell and Luka Doncic for the most by a rookie in NBA history. There's also an interesting note in here, Kyle. According to Second Spectrum, Buddy Hield on average runs at 4.73 miles per hour every game, making him the fastest player of anyone in the NBA playing at least 25 minutes per game. That's very, very interesting.
Buddy Hield, fastest player in the league. You heard it here.
Technically, I mean, right? Nobody runs faster during a game than Buddy Hield. You can say that, and it's honest. 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. Russ, you're on the drive. Hello, Russ.
Good morning. I'd hate to take a quick left turn, but I want to talk a bit about the Alabama football team.
You go right ahead. College football, you always have a home here.
Thank you. Is it me, or are you guys agreeing with me that if the path that Alabama, if they do continue to roll other teams, especially the top-ranked teams, you think this could be the best Alabama football team of all time, considering that the past that Denver had a legit quarterback?
That's tough, man, because you've got a lot of really, really good Alabama teams.
I'll buy that this is the best Alabama offense.
I can buy that too, and they certainly haven't really been challenged so much this year. And when you look at their schedule, and what they beat Jimbo Fisher in Texas A&M. What was it? 43-23, 45-23. They beat LSU by 29, and the biggest surprise in that game was that LSU kept it close in the first quarter. You know that.
Yeah.
They're not. They haven't been challenged, but I want to see them. You know, they've got Mississippi State at home. That's the number 16 team in the nation. Okay, they're probably going to blow them out, no problem. I'm looking forward to Auburn and then that Georgia game. Let's see how that goes, and then if they roll through both of those guys, and for some reason the Auburn game is really sticking out to me. They roll through both of them, then we're talking.
Yeah, and also to add to your point about Georgia, they got a defense. To add to your point, Michigan too as well has got a legit defense. So if they were to roll Georgia and Michigan, if they see those two teams in the end, so what do you think that could put them at?
I don't buy into Michigan at all. I don't buy into Michigan. And you're right. I don't buy into Michigan much at all. I don't know really, other than I think we're pointing at Alabama Clemson. And Clemson to me and Dabo Swinney and that matchup between he and Nick Saban, that's the matchup I want to see. That's the matchup if I'm an Alabama fan. Because to be honest with you, dude, I think they're gonna roll through I think Alabama is going to roll through the rest of their schedule. You look at what Alabama did, and I know you can't do college football math like this, Russ, but they beat LSU in Baton Rouge 29-0. Georgia went into LSU and lost 36-16. That's a pretty big differential, and I understand that game to game to game, and we've seen great Alabama teams before have some sort of a falter towards the end of the year, especially in those rivalry games. I just don't see it this year. I see Clemson as really the only team that can mount a challenge to Alabama. But if they're able to roll through Auburn, they're able to roll through Georgia, and then you look at what they've already done at the end of the year going into that playoff, you're going to be looking at an Alabama team that beat number 22 Texas A&M, that beat number 3 LSU in Baton Rouge, that beat number 24 Auburn, that beat number 5 Georgia, and then you go through those playoffs. If they're able to roll through all those teams and roll through the playoffs themselves, you're definitely going to have a case as this being not just the best Alabama team of all time, but you're going to have to put them up with some of the best college football teams of all time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. You take care. College Football Fridays, 339-1140. God, love college football questions.
College football leading into Friday Night Football. Matt George, Charles T. Hamilton.
Yes. Some
Charles
of these
the
players
Hamilton.
soon to be college football players.
Yep.
Hey, happy birthday to Charles Hamilton yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wednesday, I think.
Was it Wednesday? It was this week.
Either way.
Hey, you know what? Credit
Charles
for me
the
even
Hammer.
remembering it, okay?
Yeah. Nah, shout out to you.
Well, actually, it was Wednesday, Dave. Bill James is a consultant for the, should I say, Bill James was a consultant for the Red Sox. I don't think that's happening. Now let's tell you, if you don't know who Bill James is, Bill James is widely lauded as one of the greatest baseball minds of all time, and one of the fathers, if not the father, of sabermetrics.
Right. Yes.
The Bill James is an important cog in the foundation of modern day baseball as we know it, and is maybe on the Mount Rushmore of people that would fit that category. This isn't just.
I think he is.
I'm trying to be. I think Bill James is at
Okay,
the very top.
Okay, I got you.
Just trying to be,
Sure.
I say that only to underscore that this isn't Fred Smith on WKYL in Kentucky saying this. This is Bill freaking James, who said that players are as important to the game as beer vendors, and that the game would go on with whoever replaces them. Quote, if the players all retired tomorrow, we would replace them. The game would go on. In 3 years, it would make no difference whatsoever. The players are not the game any more than the beer vendors are. Tony Clark, who is the Players Association Executive Director, responded saying the comments Bill James made yesterday are both reckless and insulting, considering our game's history regarding the use of replacement players. Players are the game, and our fans have an opportunity to enjoy the most talented baseball players in the world every season. Okay. It's a longer conversation.
Bill James was effectively making the argument of the they're paid to play a game argument. They're not underpaid. Because the whole idea was that there are players who are dramatically underpaid, and the system is set up. Matt Chapman, for example, was an MVP candidate for part of this year. He was dramatically underpaid because of the way his contract is set up and forced to be set up.
Sure.
So the argument was, hey, there are players who are making less than they should be, and Bill James is basically saying they're still making $2 or $3 million. That's plenty of money.
Sure.
Which, yeah, but given the fact that the players are the reason people are there, the reason money is coming into the teams and thus to the beer vendors and to the concessions workers and the ushers, they deserve their larger share of the collective pot.
And I agree with all that. I agree with pay the players as much as the market dictates.
Yes.
I also don't completely disagree with what Bill James said on the surface. If I'm going to take a Jay Bilas type tone, I think what Bill James on the surface is trying to say is if you took every player out of Major League Baseball and you sent them to Mars, and you replace them next year with the entire minor league system, and I know that I'm using a lot of goalpost moving here, and you erased our memory of all the previous. We don't know who Mookie Betts is. We don't know who Justin Verlander is. We don't know any of those guys.
Wow. Okay.
But if you took the game of baseball, same ballpark, same team, same uniforms, and you inserted the minor league system in there, and that is now your entire baseball roster makeup. And 3 years, would we even care? We wouldn't know what to care about. I understand that.
Right.
But
that's a faulty premise.
But you would.
Because you don't have at that point. You don't have a reference point.
You don't have anything to compare it to. But the game would go on, and the game would still be fun, and the game would be interesting, and guys would hit 40 home runs, and they would steal 20 bases, and they would bat in 120 RBI, and they would hit 330. You would have superstars because the level. Now, if you took some of the players out, faulty argument. I think what he's saying is that the game is of itself the game.
Sure.
The players are being injected, and if you take all these players out and inject other professional baseball players, well, after we get used to it all, game's still going to be fun. It's still going to be baseball.
Okay, fine, whatever.
But
that's fine. That's
what I think
fine.
he's saying.
But he's saying that the players and the hot dog vendors and all of that are on the same level.
That's hyperbole. I don't agree with that.
And the idea that if you took beer vendors if you took the people that walk around and sell food or drinks at the stadium, if you unemployed all those people, people are still going to baseball games.
Sure.
If you unemployed all the baseball players and said, we're going to have AAA teams instead, you're going to have less people going to baseball games.
Sure. For a while.
No, like for a long time. Like that would be a permanent thing. If the league decided to kick out all the players.
I mean, we're talking about a fantasy world here, so it's tough. I don't think the spirit of what he's now take out the hot dog vendor thing was dumb. The hot dog. Can we just? We agree on that.
Okay, and that's then I'm done with this discussion because that's the crux of the entire issue.
You're focusing on that on the hot dog vendor
right because
thing.
That's the problem.
But I think what Bill James was saying was the game is more important than the players.
Okay, but that doesn't change the fact that they earn every dollar they make and that there are players who are dramatically underpaid. That's the whole point.
I agree with that, too. I agree with 2 out of 3 of the premises you're bringing up. I agree that the players should be paid whatever the market dictates. I'm not even a huge fan of salary caps, to be honest with you, to a point.
Sure.
I agree that the players are more important than the hot dog vendors. But I also think the game's a game. The game's a game, and you take a Matt Chapman out, and you take a Justin Verlander out, and you take a Mookie Betts out, and you take a Manny Machado out, and you put in these minor leaguers. And in about 3 years, some of those minor leaguers are going to be the new Manny Machados and the new Justin Verlanders.
Some of them.
Kershaws, and some of them won't. And some of current Major League Baseball players will not be playing professional baseball next year. But you're still going to have the ballparks, you're still going to have the uniforms, and you're still going to have the game itself. The fans will go, and they will cheer, and they will enjoy baseball because that's what they do. The players are the accoutrement. The players are the cherry on top when it comes to the rooting interest. In other words, I'm rooting for the jersey more than I'm rooting for the player. I don't care as much about Buster Posey, who is my favorite baseball player right now, if he's on the Yankees, if I do he's on the Giants playing at AT&T Park.
Okay.
You don't care as much about Matt Chapman if he's playing for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays as you do if he's playing in the Oakland Coliseum.
Well, yeah, I would because the Tampa Bay Devil Rays don't exist.
Wow. Dang, all that, and I just got burnt. I'm not answering Ian Book Notre Dame questions. The Noles have no chance this weekend against Notre Dame. Nostradamus is next. That will not be a
maybe.
Maybe. We might not have time?
Yeah.
Oh, Kyle, terrible job on your part. Horrible job. How many times do I tell you we got to get out on time so we can do Nostradamus? How many times do we have that conversation today? None?
Sports 1140 KHTK has made your morning.
What's on tap? How about your Sacramento Kings tonight? 7 p.m. at the Golden One Center taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. Kyle was asking me in my ear about this weekend's games. Let's do this. Let's go Raiders. Let's go Niners. I know it's Monday night, but let's just include it since we don't do Nostradamus till usually Tuesday or Wednesday. And let's go with tonight and Sunday's Kings games. We'll do this very, very quick. Very, very quick. Nostradamus. We look stupid or we look smart. You be the judge when we replay it next week. We'll start with the Raiders and Chargers. I have absolutely no reason to believe that the Raiders are going to win this ballgame. None at all. The Chargers are a good team. The Raiders are, well, a bad team. An absolutely bad team. I don't care where the game is. I don't care on what grounds the game is being played in. I'm going to go Chargers 34, Raiders 14. And I will go with a couple of Melvin Gordon touchdowns. Give me 2 Melvin Gordon touchdowns and give me Derek Carr to somebody touchdown.
Yeah, I think the Chargers are gonna put a beat down on the Raiders as well. The Raiders seem to have sort of given up a little bit this year. Maybe not given up, but they're not going to go try if they get down a couple of touchdowns. And I think that's what happens early on in this one. I think the Chargers cruise to a 27-10 win. I think Phillip Rivers throws for 2 touchdowns. I think Melvin Gordon gets in for 1.
The Niners have beaten the Lions by 3 and the Raiders by 31 this year. And the Giants, the New York Football Giants, beat the Houston Texans. That's right.
Interesting.
I don't know who has the better win, but I know this game's being played in Santa Clara. I'm afraid to say it. It's probably going to be 2 wins in a row for the San Francisco 49ers, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout in this case. I think they're both crap teams. I don't think the Giants are as bad as the Raiders. I'm going to say 28-24. Nick Mullins. Give Nick Mullins a couple of touchdowns. And, I don't know, give one of the running backs another touchdown for the Niners. Eli Manning, 2 picks.
Yeah, I think this is still not going to be another great test for Nick Mullins because the Giants can't rush the passer, so he should have plenty of time to do a little bit of what he did against the Raiders. Maybe we see a little bit of a regression from him, but I still think the Niners go out and win this one on Monday night. Give me 2 Nick Mullins touchdowns. Give me a Matt Breida touchdown, and I think the 49ers beat the Giants 24-17.
All right, let's stick with the football bet, even though we're going to flip to basketball, and let's flip it around. Kyle, you go first here. 7 o'clock tonight on the Sporty 1140. Timberwolves visiting the Sacramento Kings. T-Wolves 0-7. 0-7 on the road, as you pointed out yesterday.
Yeah, I think they're going to stay winless on the road. I think the Kings squeak out a close one. I think this is going to be back and forth, but eventually the Timberwolves are just kind of a mess. They're in the middle of a road trip, while the Kings, they're looking to bounce back from a couple of losses in a row. I think the Kings go get a 117-113 win over the Timberwolves.
The line on this game, Minnesota by 3.5. The over-under 230.5. That might be low. I think I'd actually take the under on this. 230.5. I'm going to take the under on this one. But I'll tell you, Minnesota's going to get the entire total probably by themselves. Jimmy Butler's going to get loose. Minnesota is ticked off. They have a couple days to rest. They're not going 0-8 on the road. 180-74 Minnesota with the victory. And let's go to Sunday, Kings, Lakers. Kyle.
That one I've got the Lakers winning because I think they are going to start ramping up a little bit. Actually, no, I predicted earlier in the week that the Kings would win both these games, so I had to pick the Kings to win. So I have the Kings winning, actually. I lied to you all just now. And I think give me Kings 127, Lakers 110.
127-110 Kings.
Yeah.
I lied. I said Sunday. I apologize. It's a Saturday matchup. Lakers-Kings. LeBron James, Laker debut in Sacramento. Kyle. Lakers come in with the best player in the world to take on the Sacramento Kings at Golden One Center. But here's the thing.
They're 0-2 the last 2 times you've done this. Just FYI.
Hey. Here's the thing. Let me finish. It's the Lakers. Kings 480, Lakers 3. It will be domination from quarter to quarter. We're actually not going to have 4 quarters played because Luke Walton is going to pull his team off and take them all to a psych ward for evaluation because they're going to be uncontrollably crying. You're going to have Laker fans that way overpaid for their seats, just drunk and sad and stumbling out of Golden One Center. Maybe the most embarrassing loss the Lakers
would be the most embarrassing loss
ever experienced in their long and lame history. Kings 400 and something, Lakers 1.
Oh, not done a 1.
Yeah, I took away a couple of points. They get they get a Brandon Ingram free throw. By the way, if that's the final score, I'm quitting my job. I'm quitting my job and I'm moving to Vegas. If it's 480-1 and Ingram gets the 1 free throw, I will go on record and say I will not be here on Monday. I will tender my resignation, and I will die a happy man. For Sean Salisbury and Jay Bilas on the Fire Wings hotline for not Minus, not Arnis, Eunice behind the glass, doing a phenomenal job as always, the only professional person, the entire staff. And Kyle Madson wearing a Sac Republic t-shirt. At a guy. Carmichael
and
Dave.
hat.
And hat, excuse me. Jim Rome is next. Enjoy your weekend and the rest of your broadcast day right here on Sports 1140 KHTK. Bye. No.